You're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the San Francisco Playhouse and to one of our two weekly TV shows. I never thought I would be in television. I decided to be in theater, but here we are with a couple of weekly TV series. On Thursday, we have the interviews that we do with many of America's greatest playwrights, and on Monday night, we have this wonderful Zoomlet series. I'm really grateful to say we have a full house tonight. More people are watching tonight than would fit into our theater, or I guess it's fairer to say we have a lot of full houses. We have many, many full houses that are full of people who love theater and are here because we just got to get our theater fix somehow. So here we are. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to thank the Ohlone people for squiring and taking care of this amazing land on which we are lucky enough to live here in San Francisco. And wanted to express my gratitude and my pride to be able to be here, and for the gratitude for them for taking care of this land for so many centuries before we came. So the Zoomlet series is sort of like a little mini production all of its own. It's a little mini microcosm of what might be a first rehearsal for a play. And the artistic director usually does two things. The artistic director picks the plays and picks the directors. And then once the director's picked, it sort of goes out of his or her hands, because the director gets to pick the cast, the director gets to pick all the designers, the director comes up with the concept, with the driving creative force behind the play, and hopefully is able to communicate something bigger than just the words that are on a page to the audience. So tonight we're doing one of our Zoomlets, and it's a play by one of my very, very favorite playwrights, Dipika Guha. This will be the fourth play of hers we've done. We did two in the Sandbox, and then, of course, we did Yoga Play last season, and then took Yoga Play down to Laguna Playhouse. So this is the first of her very, very short plays that we've done. But I think those of you who've been to her plays before will recognize her light but heavy style, dealing with very, very, very big issues. But she does it with a flourish and with a light touch, which makes things more palatable and gives her very, very wonderful characteristic qualities of playwright. And we're very lucky tonight to have a director that we have not worked with before yet, but who is a very important director in the San Francisco scene. And you may have seen some of his directing on the shows that have been at ACT recently online, and he's been a real pioneer for online work. I'd like to introduce you to Peter Kuo.
Hi, thank you so much, Bill. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for kind of joining us for this Zoomlet inside look on kind of a rehearsal process. I do kind of look at this as its own little artistic offering. And so I'm going to share some things that I've been talking with the cast with a little bit beforehand. I do want to, this play In the Desert by Dipika Guha is so beautiful and wonderful, and I can't wait for you to all hear it out loud. This will be the first time that this cast is really coming together. So it really is our first rehearsal, and it's the first time that they're going to hear the play out loud and bring voice to these characters for the first time. Dipika has some magical and whimsical little things that we're going to be playing with in this. And so we're going to experiment with those things. That being said, I just want to offer some content disclosure that there is, the play does reference and deal with sexual assault at the end. So I just want you all to know that, because as we talk about the piece, I've given my cast the full heads up that they are aware about how that is kind of living in the play at the end of it, and how it kind of can be triggered in certain ways, but also to give them the freedom to dive into it, especially in this public forum, but also be aware that they have the choice to be able to not share some of that in this public forum. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, this whole place. Want to introduce the cast who will be joining us. Playing the camel in this play will be Puya Mohseni. Please feel free to bring your video on. Hi, thank you, Puya. And then we have playing the character named Man, Jeff Whittekind. And then playing Camel Child is Michael Korashi. And playing the first girlfriend is Jillian Macklin. Thank you. And so really, we're just gonna hear this play for the first time. So this will be a lot of kind of instinctual reads from these actors. I'm gonna disappear and Bill will disappear as we're reading through this, but I'll be reading the stage directions. And so I'll read all of them pretty much, but feel free, actors, I trust you. If you feel the momentum doesn't need a stage direction, just go ahead and pick it right through and I'll break off. But before that, actors, do you have anything that you'd like to share or any questions you'd like to ask before we just kind of dive into the text?
Not at the moment.
Nope.
Fantastic. I love this. Y'all are so game. I'm so excited. Well, let's do it and let's see what happens.
Bunch, I think. Yes.
Great. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna go off camera and then I'll read a stage direction starting at the top. In the desert, Dipika Guha. The desert, midwinter, an oud plays softly in the background. A man and a camel look at one another across a sandy dune. The camel does not speak, but is very expressive. A long pause. The camel perhaps chews the equivalent of camel gum.
Have dinner with me?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Me?
You. Eat with me.
Really?
Looking into your eyes is like looking into the soul of the desert. Your eyelashes.
What about them? What about my eyelashes?
They are the windows of the universe. Opening and closing. Opening and closing. Opening. They are delightful.
So much more where that came from.
Come, have dinner with me. You will not regret it.
Wait, what regret?
Huh? Oh, no, nothing. I only meant, think not of regret. Tu ne regrets rien.
Oh, you're French. I wasn't thinking of regret. I mean, I wasn't until you.
Do you like to dance?
Oh my God, yes.
We can dance if you would only eat with me.
It's the best way to show off my humps.
Your humps.
I have two.
They are muscular, like the dunes themselves, rising hard and strong, a force from within, unstoppable passion.
Holy shit.
Eat with me.
The man and the camel look at each other and fall into each other's eyes. Scene 2, the desert. The camel sits at the dinner table with a camel child. The camel child scratches his ears. They are human ears. There's only part of him that's human. Camel speaks.
Don't do that. Don't scratch your ears.
They're itchy.
Don't.
Why?
They bleed when you.
They don't.
There's blood in your soup.
Camel child looks into his soup.
They itch all the time.
Did you take your allergy medication?
Only like all the time. Doesn't help.
How's school?
Fine.
I'm really asking.
I'm really saying. Fine.
What?
It's like sometimes.
What?
Never mind.
Just say it.
Don't yell.
Sorry.
Sometimes I feel like I'm the parent in this scenario.
Sorry.
Especially when you forget things. You're forgetting things all the time. Last week was sports day.
Was it?
I won a race.
Which one?
Never mind.
No, tell me, darling. I'm listening. Which one?
The 100 meters.
That's wonderful. Did you?
Yes, I had my water bottle.
Okay. I was just. You know, you're my little chicken butt.
Stop it.
You know your little fish fry.
Ugh.
You're the love of my life. Just don't scratch your ears.
Why do they itch so much?
Genetics?
Am I deformed?
No, you're not deformed. No, you are not. No matter what anyone says.
Oh my God, what are they saying?
Honey, listen to me.
Do I have to finish eating this?
You are not deformed.
Do I make your life difficult?
Yes. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Scene 3. The camel child is now a teenager. He holds hands with his first girlfriend. She has tall donkey ears. She's sensitive about them. He knows this, but he can't help looking at them anyway.
Which one?
Huh?
Which college?
Oh, I don't know.
But we're turning in our personal essays this week.
I thought it was next week.
Don't worry.
I'm not.
Well, if at first you fail.
I haven't failed. I haven't had experiences enough to put in a whole essay. I've had a pretty sheltered life. School, the oasis. School.
You could talk about
What?
your troubles,
What troubles?
the troubles you have.
I'm not really troubled. I just wanted to get your attention. My troubles are cultivated.
You could talk about genetics.
My weight.
No. Although, yes, but no. Your ears.
Oh,
It's taken me a lot of therapy to like process my stuff. But okay, you could use the heat of your story and tell it.
I don't know if that's mine to.
Is it sad?
It's tragic.
Tell it.
It began out here in the desert.
Man and camel at a beautifully set dinner table. Wine, white tablecloth, sparkling silverware. They stare at one another. Sand blows around them romantically. The oud starts up again.
The way he looked at me, like he could see
all of Africa, burning in your irises,
like he could touch,
skin softened by the sun,
like he could feel.
rain.
What rain?
It started to rain.
But it doesn't rain.
Rain falls.
The rain fell on their dinner.
In the desert, soaking the white tablecloth, streaking down our faces, diluting the wine.
Staining the picture.
What happened?
He said I was soft, like a warm forest, the dense undergrowth of private thoughts and feelings. I had never had a feeling or a thought in that order, but I trusted he saw that I was capable of this, thinking and feeling. At once he saw someone so beautiful. And I am beautiful, but what he saw, it was more than that. He saw the night sky in my skin and the desert in my muscles. So when in the dead of winter, he tore at my fur, pulling its roots, I screamed in a voice that came from somewhere else. And I stood there in my softness, dying.
In the previous sequence, the camel and the man play out a choreographed dance in the rain. The man sees the camel feels seen. The table turns to a dance floor, and the dance floor into a bed, and the bed into the night sky.
His face, those ears, the figure, I thought, has happened already. My blood is rushing into the next, and the next is a beating heart and bone and skin, like night, and muscles like the desert, thinking and feeling like that. I lay down, and you stood up.
I'll get it back for you. Your skin.
I've forgotten this.
It's not safe to forget things.
It's not safe to remember.
If I get it back for you, I would have had some experiences. Something to say.
My story's my own. Feeling and thought. My own.
Skin's mine, though. Even yours.
End of play. Cool. Thank you. I
We
realized
did that a little out of order.
we did. My mic was off. And so when I was describing the dancing part, I had no idea that it was completely silent. So Puya, I'm so glad you just kind of went, I'm just going to start saying my lines now. I was like, okay, they should have some context of what that was. So that's why I was like, I'm just going to refer to what happened in that section.
It was a great ad lib. I thought you rolled with it nicely, Peter.
Thank you. Oh my God. I can't even imagine what that silence must have been for all of you. You're just like, this is important. Okay, we're just going to go. We're just gonna
Like, context. It's like Jeff and I, making googie eyes over Zoom and
This is an endless moment. Yeah.
It's a very strong beat.
Yeah.
So I'm curious from you all cast, just play this story. What kind of jumps out at you? What stands out to you about this piece? And it is a very, very deep metaphor, and I'm curious what you all read into it.
What I It's almost like the reality of being violated, that you can't forever live in the pain of it, or you can't move forward.
Mm.
And I feel that how she wants to remember it, how she wants to present it to herself or her child, is this idea of, I want to remember the beautiful moments,
Mm.
and I want to hand that off to you, because that moment of this saying, like, forgetting is dangerous, and Camel says remembering is dangerous.
Yeah.
And I feel it's this idea of, like, what does a woman, or what does a person who's violated, what do they need to do to be able to move on with their life as best as they can?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And like how, something that kind of sticks out to me in the way I was hearing when you all read it is like, and how do those reminders linger, and in what ways? I'm curious from other folks.
I really, go ahead.
I was wondering if the first girlfriend is prying because she actually knows little bits and pieces and she just wants to know, like, what's up with your ears? Or if she knows how much she stepped in to ask that question. Like, it's not just 1 + 1 = 2. What did I get myself into? But now I'm intrigued. What happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Chef?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say something else, but actually piggybacking off of that, like, I think it's interesting that the first girlfriend also has, these donkey ears, and there's clearly something, some kind of like trauma or something associated with those as well, although we don't get into that in the play. And I think it's illustrative to me of the ways in which people being able to share their story in whatever way they're comfortable with, and in a way that they feel might be productive, can really bond people together. And in this case, we have these very visible forms of trauma, right? Even though we may not know the story behind it necessarily, they're like, kind of signposts, like indicating that. But obviously, in emotional terms, for a lot of us, those signs are much more hidden. And it can feel very isolating, I know, for people who experience severe trauma, to feel that they're the only ones that suffer this way, or that their experience is really unusual and different and strange, and people won't want to hear about it, and people won't be able to relate to it, and all those things. And it's really wonderful to see, like, there even though it's an adolescent relationship, like there seems to be an invitation, like we were just talking about like a kind of an invitation to share in a safe space, and with someone who has a inherent understanding.
I was also thinking a lot in this reading, especially about how like the truth obviously is a dangerous thing, because it can be so many things at the same time, especially the truth, which is in the story, stems from something of violence, wherein the mother is in love with her son. He's not a burden. She wouldn't have him any other, there's like this beautiful loving relationship between them, but that beauty that exists between them does not sort of preclude the violence that begot him in the first place, So it's like, how much of the truth do you reveal? Because some of it is so violent and personal, and some of it is so beautiful. It's something that you want to cherish and share with somebody in a way, like that. And that this woman with the ears, the donkey ears, that the camel child can't stop staring at. It's that, who knows what happened to her, but it's that thing between them, whether or not that came from trauma, but that sort of is unique and draws them to one another. It's how truth can bind you as well as isolate you.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of time, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into like how ways that I interpret this and some of the things that you all are saying that are kind of like bridging certain things together for me, and something that I was talking to Dipika deeply about, which is just like, specifically, well, it was funny when we were talking about this. At first, she was like, "Well, let's see. I think the races can be different things." And then, as we talked more, it's like, "No, there is something about a colonialism going on here, and kind of like the white male kind of coming in and what that looks like." And so it was very much of like, okay, and we're talking about camels, and so what world are we representing? And this kind of idea of, to me, one of the things that I really honed in was like, oh, this reminder of, so this camel who is kind of wooed by this man, and then at the end is very violently sexually assaulted by him, but that begets a child. And what that child represents to her is something that I'm so intrigued by, and how that, because we don't learn about that assault until the very end of the play. And yet, it's the way that they talk to each other. And, it's interesting the way Dipika even writes about like him scratching the ear, and like there's this negative association he has with these ears, which are a representation of this man. I kind of gather, and I'm curious on your thoughts too, that he doesn't know the story of what happened to him in scene 2, or what he's a product of, but he definitely is by scene 3. And it feels like the girlfriend also is aware that she is a product of, whether it's assault or not. I think it is, just because the way she talks about it, but she's a product of kind of interspecies sexual relations, which feels, I think what's interesting about that is like in our world, that's very taboo. And so I could see why that's a product that might continue to be this product, and how these two characters, the camel child and the first girlfriend, from the outside world would seem very obviously like, oh, you carry this mark with you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of things that like jump out to me a bit, and that connect to some of the things that you all are talking about. I'm curious if any of that jumps to you, or any of that resonates with you, any of you.
It does for me, because there's one of these things that I always get, because I have like red hair or whatever, like even though both of my parents are Arab, I always get this thing that like, oh, well, some white colonizer came and like raped one of your ancestors, and that's why you have this hair. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. It's a mark that sort of exists as like a signifier for Europeanness or whatever. So that sort of narrative is always often like flung onto me personally on an aesthetic level. So I do resonate with that, actually, when you were saying that about colonization, because it's like this like need to have an explanation for this, and the explanation must be violence or something. There's something there. For me.
Mm-hmm.
There's also something about the camel. I'm actually kind of researching, my grandmother, who was born in Iran. I mean, I was born in Iran, my mother, my grandmother, and all of those women. This idea that things happen to you that you have no control over, and then you just have to live with the consequences as best as you can. And it's almost like you pride yourself, and it's like I imagine a lot of women of color have similar experiences, that you kind of get to a point that becomes your taught way of moving forward and dealing with it, that it's just culturally embedded in you. Bad things happen to you, and all you can do is just move forward and make the best of it.
Right.
And there's something so clear about the camel character, as almost like a mother of color,
Yeah.
regardless of like who the violator is, but this idea that she doesn't really have a voice. The only thing that she can do is just to move forward and make the best of it.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting while you're saying like the Kimmel is a mother of color, when you look at how she's not teaching her son to hate himself, regardless to everything that happened. The same thing you were just saying about, you know, overcome, overcome, overcome. And that's a constant through line as I'm a Black woman, as a through line of like, just get over it, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. But then when you realize what's happening, like, I don't want to remember the bad things. Let's just talk about positive things. But sometimes I need both sides of the story so I can have my own thing. Like the same thing he was saying at the end, like I need something to say, but I don't know what my story is, you know, and the importance of actually sharing your story and sharing your pain sometimes can be freeing for the next generation.
Right, which is why this line at the very on page 12, it's for the camel child to say, it's not safe to forget things, this need to remind people of the story, and yet for the camel to say, it's not safe to remember. Like the dichotomy of the trauma in us. Oh, this is something interesting, and I'm kind of suddenly unpacking right now. The feeling of like when that trauma and violence happens to you, there's pain associated with that memory. But when you're the child of someone who's gone through that trauma, and this is, I would say this is something I've felt and feel like I've witnessed in my family, is that lack of recognition of that trauma trickles down, but I didn't know what that trauma was. And so I'm affected by it in a way that I don't understand because I don't know what it was. You know, and to be clear, like I'm not a child of sexual assault in family, but just more generational trauma. I feel like generational trauma is something that's a theme that's suddenly hitting me out here.
That also brings up, Julian, I think it's a great point. It brings up for me this idea of like personal trauma and, you know, the way that individuals have to carry and process that, and also collective and communal trauma, right? Like in terms of like social progress, it's important that we have these kind of collective communal reckonings in a lot of ways. You know, look at the 1619 Project, like things like that are really important. It's this kind of broad sharing of, you know, the reality of things that have been denied and ignored by the ruling classes and ruling groups for so long. And obviously there's a cost and effort and everything associated with that on a communal level. But then there's also the personal level, right? Like some people don't want to share in a public forum or even in a private forum their trauma, and it's their decision, you know, ultimately about what they want to do. And it's the person who suffered that trauma who has to make that call. And it's up to the rest of us to respect it. You know, so there's like, I don't want to say there's a tension there, but there's kind of a balance there. And that's why I'm always so amazed and impressed by people who bring their incredibly painful personal stories into the world in a public way, whether it's obfuscated through art or whether it's just in terms of like, you know, putting their story out there in a very blunt and direct way, you know, naming names and things like that. I'm just amazed by the courage and conviction that takes.
There's something very deep to me about this idea of how specifically we as artists have often been asked to kind of display our trauma for others in certain ways. And yet there's this interesting fine line. I have this question mark personally, and I still don't know if I fully investigated it, is like, what is the sign of a true artist? An artist who can separate themselves from it and tell the story as it is, or in a very healthy way, utilize their own experiences to be able to tell a certain story, and not have it like abused in a certain way, especially one's personal traumas and violations. And yet, how does, I think what you just said, Jeff, kind of putting that out in the world help the rest of the world, either dealing with that or moving through it or dealing, you know, I always find it interesting when I watch certain plays and there's this deep amount of trauma and audience members have this cathartic release through that. I don't know, something I'm just suddenly thinking of. I want to kind of talk through scene by scene, but is there anything else on a like grander scale that anyone wants to explore, discuss, or questions?
I would like to explore the relationship between camel and camel child a
Mhm.
little more. It's like, I mean, I
Yeah.
get this idea that it's kind of like there's something almost very, just mother and teenage child about it. Um, but now that we're talking about, this tension about the secret, like
Yeah.
we all know it's a secret, but what is the secret?
Yeah.
Um, I'm
Yeah.
curious about that if we have the time to do it.
Yeah, let's do it now. Well, so because it's interesting to me at first, hearing you read it, Puya, the first scene, suddenly what hit me, because I think I did this too when I read it, I think mother, oh mother, and I think of a certain age. But I think the camel and the man, but especially the camel, is much younger than I think in my head at the very top of the play. She feels very coy and shy and playful, and I think there's something like there's a naiveness there that actually I think one can live in, specifically because like there's so many things that this man says that like red flags for me. I don't know if you all like, there are moments I'm like, that's exotification. That it like he does all the little party tricks to kind of like, oh no, but you're the oasis. What does he say? He says something into the soul of the desert. And I'm immediately like, that is such exotification right there. But he says all the right things to kind of woo this camel. And I think, the question mark is how aware is he of his own charm in that? Which then leads me, I think, to what you're talking about, Puya. It feels like I have this question mark of, did the camel feel like she had to grow up quickly because she had a child? And was she actually able to do that? Because I'm so intrigued by this statement he has of, I feel like I'm the adult. Or what is it? It's sometimes I feel like I'm the parent in this scenario.
And I can completely understand that, because if as you're saying that she's young at the time that this happens, and she becomes a camel mother before she's ready for it, then some part, and I have seen this in, like especially single mothers that had children at a young age, kind of like, I think we have different pathways of evolution. And suddenly when the single person becomes a mother, then that part evolves, but their own journey of evolving as an individual kind of gets stuck at that point, because they can no longer be a person that's growing. They've now become a mother. And certain things that they wanted to do, they wanted to experience, they never got to do.
Yeah. I very much think of the child as like, oh, what is that? There's I feel like there's that trope of the child who's grown up way too soon, like they're at age like 8 and they're already wearing a suit and tie or something, and or who is it, like oh, that show Modern Family, Manny, I think about, like he's a little bit more adult than he already, yeah.
He's got good genes. You got good genes, kid. My genes.
Well, I also feel like they just have good banter too. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
banter is good. They're both kind of quick a little bit. Like, and even though I'm young, it's fun that way.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious of how much of that banter, like what the underlining thing I'm thinking about in that second scene with you, Puya Michael, is how much, like, I without it leaning too hard into it, but that banter that's very playful, and this kind of like, because she was forced to grow up so fast, there's still that kind of, there's some parents I know who are like, the way they talk to the children, I'm like, it's like you're in college together. Like, what? You all just say those things. And how much of that, because she doesn't want to let go of a kind of teenage them or like youth that she never really had. And also how much of that is a deflection of who he reminds her of, or what he reminds her of too.
One thing I also definitely felt in her dialogue is she's really trying to be
Mm-hmm.
a good, responsible mother. It's like the way she asks the questions, the way she asks them. It's almost like she's really trying, uh, and almost like compensating.
Mm.
Like she's compensating for something, because
Yeah.
also, what does usually happen when a person is violated? There's also that sense of guilt that somehow I was responsible for this,
Yeah.
especially with a world that doesn't tell them otherwise. And
Yeah.
I feel it's those different things that he is this way because of something I did, and I'm just gonna like I'm gonna envelop him in this rosy world,
Right.
so he doesn't have to grow up that way.
Yeah.
So that I'm compensating. I'm trying to do more because I feel that I have done something wrong, and I definitely see that in parents who
Yeah.
are have to be responsible for everything.
What I love about that idea, Puya, too, is it makes it very active that you also, it feels like you have to fight the negativity, because I can't even imagine what it would be like to, for 9 months, carry a reminder of that, of a sexual assault. And then when you have that child, like, to want to love it, but also I'm very curious of like how often looking at him, seeing those ears specifically, those ears that are such a strong visual manifestation of you're not just me, but you're also of this man and this moment, and how much she has to constantly fight that. The overcompensation I feel you're talking about is something that I feel like is interesting in that.
And there's one line when
Yeah.
the camel child asks something about, like, do I bother you, or am I an inconvenience for
Yeah.
you? And there's this beautiful part of, she says yes, and then something to the effect of, but I wouldn't trade it. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly, but something to the effect of, like, I still wouldn't trade it,
Yeah.
even though it may be a hurtful experience.
Do you think at any point, if in her life with this child, if he had caught her at the wrong moment, she would have said something different?
I would
Yeah.
think so. It's one of those things, like, I mean, from the dialogue I'm getting, there's a lot of love
Yeah.
between both of them, but I'm imagining if it was a moment that she wasn't as in control,
Hmm.
that she may have said something to the effect of, um, that he is a painful reminder of that experience.
And I feel, and so it makes me think that he's almost like, because if he's a teenager in scene 3, I feel like Camel Child in scene 2 is preteen. Like I really think he's probably like 8 or 9. And so there's this really interesting, like the moment Dipika has this why like written there that does feel childlike, but then other moments when he's like, well, you miss my, that he becomes very responsible in a certain way. And I think that balance is really interesting.
When you just said that made me think of what has he heard? Like kids are super
Yeah.
smart.
I was
What did
just
you
thinking that.
hear?
Yeah.
Yeah, like was overhearing their conversation or something, because the specifics of, do I make your life difficult? Like, did you hear that on the phone call, or did she say that one day? What is it? Even saying, am I deformed? Did a kid say that on the playground? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
where did he pick it up from?
When is it's like I feel like in all these like equity, diversity, inclusion conversations, there's always that question of like, when's the first time that you realized you were different or you were othered or blah blah blah? And I feel like this is it with him. It's that moment where other kids said things and now he's finally at home and he's like, Mom, what's oh, oh, sorry, I'm just getting chills because like that moment is such an intricate, such a difficult part in probably both of their lives, because she can probably feel the questions coming. Ooh, it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's a reckoning that I'm sure she's aware will come, right? It's just a question of when.
And I'm sure it was a realization for him to ask the question and then see the response as well, you know? It's sort of like a confirmation, like, oh, okay, man, this triggered something maybe in my mother that maybe this does have some truth that resonates with it. That means something else.
Right. Because he has to have realized as a child, like in the playground or something, like, why do I have different ears? Everyone, you know, and I'm sure she's made some excuse at some point, and now finally it's other kids are rumoring, like, actually, I don't think it's because of,
Your great grandfather. He traveled a lot.
Yeah.
That's funny that you say that.
Which does make me think, I think in the later scene when he's a teenager, like he knows everything. And the fact that the girlfriend, I wonder if these two respectively, separately, have had other people talk about this trauma of what it means to be a kind of bi-species, like child.
Yeah, because even in the line of, it starts with the stage directions of she's still self-conscious, right? And then later on, touching their ears of like, you know, it took me a lot of time to process, but clearly I'm still processing. But I'm trying to hold your hand through your process, but I have no idea what it is. Or I'm wondering if she knows how to even be there for him. I don't know.
Yeah. Because it's also interesting because you don't know where people are in their journey, right? And she says it's taking me a lot of therapy to process my stuff.
Right. Which is an ongoing process.
Yes.
Like, still, yeah.
Well, and you know, you never know what somebody's journey even is, right? I mean, I know I've had moments where I kind of assume that something has been difficult for somebody because of some aspect of their identity, only to find out like, no, you know, it's entirely possible. I mean, I don't know, but maybe from the first girlfriend's point of view that his mother is a camel and his father was a guy and they had a great relationship and the guy died and then that's what it is. We don't have any way of knowing, you know, even if we have kind of assumptions that want to pop up or even if we know that there's some kind of trauma involved in something. So I know it's really easy for me to kind of like try to connect those dots in my head and like solve the mystery or whatever ahead of, you know, what the person might be, you know, ready to talk about or whatever.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. Yeah.
That's why I was wondering if she actually knew or if she was prying. Because it's the same thing I feel like every day in 2020. If you ask somebody, how are you doing? You don't know what you're going to get. Right? Right. You just got to be careful. Like, oh, I didn't expect that, you know? Like,
right?
You're never quite sure. So, yeah.
Well, and that's interesting and yet she it's one of those, she recognizes, right, that he is of this thing, but how in the conversation is he? Yeah. So I'd like to kind of try a bit of an experiment if we can read through this whole thing again, but I'd like to play with, if you're not speaking, that your video is off, or that if you're not on stage, quote, that your video is off. But I'd like to play with two different things, which is because the way that I don't know if folks can see, or of course you can't, the way it's written in the script, this for the audience, the camel's first lines in the first scene with the man are all in parentheses. And Dipika had mentioned before, like she played with the idea of those not being said, those being said, and things like that. I'd like to play with this medium a little bit and have Jill voice over those first sections while we just see Puya living in the camel's existence with Jeff. And then if we get to it, I don't know if we will time-wise, in the dance section where it talks about the dance, Puya and Jeff, I don't know if you have the abilities to like maybe are you on laptops or things?
I am, but it's like plugged into a million devices.
Is there an ability to like just like lift it up and move it?
Yeah.
I'm just curious if there's like a box step that both of you could do.
Kind of like this?
Yeah, something as simple as that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jill could read that camel over section.
Without everyone getting dizzy.
Yeah. But I think just a sense of movement that leads into the movement can start to get a little bit more violent as the actual story gets violent. So Puya, mostly you'll still read in scene 2, the camel part, and most of the last one, except for that long paragraph. I'd love to have Jill do the voiceover on that too while you guys are doing the movement, just so that we can see that. Can we try that, everyone?
I have a question about that long well, I
Yeah.
mean, there are 2 paragraphs.
Sorry, the first section. He said I was soft all the way to
Okay.
dying. Yeah. And then you can take back over on this phase, those years, because I think you're talking about the camel child. Cool.
And
So
do
I
I turn
will.
my camera off for?
Yeah, I think tap off at the beginning. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So I won't read as much stage directions, but let's just. I actually won't even start with the top one now that everyone's heard it. So I'll just let you all go.
Have dinner with me?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Me?
You. Eat with me.
Wait, really?
Looking into your eyes is like looking into the soul of the desert. Your eyelashes.
Oh, what about them? What about my eyelashes?
They are the windows of the universe. Opening and closing, opening and closing, opening. They are delightful.
So much more where that came from.
Come, have dinner with me. You will not regret it.
Wait, what regret?
Huh? Oh, no, nothing. I only meant think not of regret. Tu never regret.
Oh, you're French. Well, I wasn't thinking of regret. I mean, I wasn't until you.
Do you like to dance?
Oh my God, yes.
We can dance if you would only eat with me.
Oh, it's the best way to show off my humps.
Your humps.
I have two.
They are muscular, like the dunes themselves, rising hard and strong, a force from within, unstoppable passion.
Holy shit.
Eat with me.
The man and the camel look at each other and fall into each other's eyes. Scene 2, the desert. Camel sits at a dinner table with Camel Child. Camel Child has human ears, scratches them.
Don't do that. Don't
They're
scratch your
itchy.
ears.
Why?
Don't. They bleed when you.
They don't.
There's blood in your soup.
They itch all the time.
Did you take your allergy medication?
Only like every day. Doesn't help.
How's school?
Fine.
I'm really asking.
I'm really saying. Fine.
What?
It's like sometimes
What?
never mind.
Just say it.
Don't yell.
Sorry.
Sometimes I just feel like I'm the parent in this scenario.
Sorry.
Especially when you forget things. You're forgetting things all the time. Last week was sports day.
Was it?
I won a race.
Which one?
Never mind.
No, tell me, darling. I'm listening. Which one?
The 100 meters.
That's wonderful. Did you?
Yes, I had my water bottle.
Okay. I was just. You know you're my little chicken butt.
Stop it.
You know you're my little fish fry.
Ew. Ugh.
You're the love of my life. Just don't scratch your ears.
Why do they itch so much?
Genetics?
Am I deformed?
No, you are not deformed. No, you are not. No matter what anyone says.
What is it? What are they saying?
Honey, listen to me.
I have to finish eating this.
You are not deformed.
Do I make your life difficult?
Yes. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Scene 3, Camel Child is now a teenager. He holds hands with his first girlfriend. She has tall donkey ears, sensitive about them.
Which one? Which college?
I don't know.
But we're turning in our personal essays this week.
I thought it was next week.
Oh, don't worry.
I'm not.
Well, if at first you fail,
I haven't failed. I haven't had experiences enough to put in a whole essay. I had a pretty sheltered life, and school, the Oasis, school.
You could talk about
What?
your troubles.
What troubles?
The troubles you have.
I'm not really troubled. I just wanted to get your attention. My troubles are cultivated.
You could talk about genetics.
My weight?
No, although yes, but no, your ears.
Oh,
No,
you.
it's taken me a lot to process my stuff, but you could use the heat of the story and just tell it.
I don't know if that's mine to tell.
Is it sad?
It's tragic.
Tell it.
It begins out here in the desert.
Man and camel at a beautifully set dinner table. Sand blows romantically. The oud starts up again.
The way he looked at me, like he could see.
All of Africa, burning in your irises.
Like he could touch.
Skin softened by the sun.
Like he could feel.
Rain.
Wait, what rain?
It started to rain.
But it doesn't rain.
The rain fell on their dinner.
in the desert, soaking the white tablecloth, streaking down our faces, diluting the wine.
Staining the picture.
What happened?
We look over at Camel and Man, who play a choreographed dance in the rain. Man sees Camel. Camel feels truly seen. First girlfriend leaves as Camel Child watches. Table turns into a dance floor, the dance floor into a bed, the bed into the night sky.
He said I was soft, like a warm rainforest, a dense undergrowth of private thoughts and feelings. I had never had a feeling or a thought in that order, but I trusted he saw that I was capable of this, thinking and feeling at once. He saw someone so beautiful, and I am beautiful. But what he saw, it was more than that. He saw the night sky in my skin and the desert in my muscles. So when in the dead of winter, he tore at my fur, pulling its roots, I screamed in a voice that came from somewhere else. And I stood there in my softness, dying.
Man leaves and we see Camel Child and Camel.
This face.
Oh, Jill, actually, Pooya, you can start to read this, yeah. And Michael, can we get you back in?
This face, those ears, the future. I thought has happened already. My blood is rushing into the next, and the next is a beating heart. And bone and skin like night, and muscles like the desert, thinking and feeling. Like that, I lay down, and you stood up.
I'll get it back for you. Your skin.
I've forgotten this.
It's not safe to forget things.
It's not safe to remember.
If I get it back for you, I would have had some experiences. Something to say.
My story is my own. Feeling and thought. My own.
Skin's mine, though. Even yours.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So beautiful. And the connection that you all we're creating with each other through this whole thing. So lovely. I think we're kind of at time with everything, but I have to say, like, tremendous work, the four of you. Thank you so much. And so quick and so vulnerable and so open and wonderful, like, discoveries and beats and discussion. Y'all, I'm sad that this is it. That was it.
Oh, we have rehearsal tomorrow, right?
Well, what lovely. Yeah, that'd be so lovely. Thank you, all of you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much. That was just terrific. That was just terrific. And the discussion is just such a beautiful a beautiful piece of work, you guys, all the way through, from just reading it to talking about it. I think we got into a great deal of depth with all the characters and with all of the what's really underlying this beautiful little play. So thank you. And thank you all in our full houses for tuning in to our Monday night Zoomlet series to hear In the Desert by Dipika Guha, directed by Peter Kuo. Thank you all so much. Many of you who donated when you got your free ticket We are paying everybody who works on these shows, all of them, the playwright, the director, and all the actors. So it really helps. Your contributions really help. And of course, once you've signed off, you'll get a thank you email for thanking you for coming, and another opportunity for those of you who hadn't had a chance to donate. And we're hoping you will contribute. Just a couple of previews for what's coming up. On Thursday, we have our fireside cocktail with Susie, and her guest for fireside cocktails is going to be the incomparable, the illuminated Elle Bay, who many of you may remember from Mary Poppins as the eponymous character in our production of Mary Poppins. And of course, she was also in Stupid Fucking Bird and Abraham Lincoln's Big Gay Dance Party. So we're going to have a wonderful time with Elle Bay. And then next Monday, we're starting a small series of plays by Native American playwrights. So we're really thrilled to have you join us. There's going to be 2 or 3 of those over the next month or 2. And the first one is going to be called Flight by Delana Studi. And we're hoping to see you next Monday for that. Really wonderful little script. Thank you all. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evenings. All you New York folks, it's probably getting a little late there, but I didn't hear any sirens during the rehearsal period. So thank you once again, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you.